tonight, with the cost of living, an increase in Social Security benefits this year isn't doing much, as some recipients say the higher cost of everyday items is outpacing those extra dollars. Kaylin Hagwood takes a closer look at the issue.
When the Social Security Administration announced late last year to boost retirement benefits by 5.9%, Martha Thompson was excited.
So as more checks are being sent out right now to low-income households, new fourth stimulus payments have also been approved to address the hardships that many people are facing and have been facing over the past years. So wave 1 of the fourth stimulus checks are going to be direct deposited and mailed out to eligible residents, and also there is more stimulus money going out. Maine residents, for example, could be eligible to get $850 checks to address the crisis and inflation-induced economic woes. A necessary estimated 880,000 residents will be able to collect their relief checks too, which are funded by a little half over the state's budget surplus. So eligible individuals have until probably the end of October to fill out the necessary paperwork to claim their payments. And according to the news centers, the state governor has said in support of the bill, what this budget shows once again is that through hard work and good faith negotiations, Democrats, Republicans, and independents can come together and get something done for the Maine people. And that is what we want to do without bitter bipartisanship that has sometimes divided the states. So in order to qualify for this fiscal relief, the Maine residents must be a full-year resident, living there for the whole year. So according to the governor's office, individuals must have also an annual income that is under $100,000. So if filing individually or under $200,000, if filing jointly, it must not be filed as a dependent. Mills signed a bill green-lighting the checks back in April. She proposed the relief checks to alleviate the fiscal strain that's brought onto residents of Maine and managed to wrangle the measure through the state legislature. The stimulus is projected to cost a total of around $730 million. It's also important to remember that checks will be rolled out to residents using the address on the 2021 Maine income tax return. New Englanders have until the end of the year and the warning months. If New Englanders want to stay warm in their home this coming winter, it's probably going to be expensive. So, Joe Biden did something about this. Joe Biden warned the oil and gas companies to not increase the gas prices for consumers. So during a press conference today, Joe Biden said, "Don't let me repeat this, do not use this as an excuse to raise gas prices or gouge the American people." So there are a few signs that gas prices have actually jumped significantly as the hurricane passed. As the day 99 rose, falling prices have actually nationally ended recently, and the 14-week decline was the longest streak since 2015. The nationwide average price has also risen by about $5 a gallon and $6 in California. In June, as the economic recovery and an increase in travel boosted demand for gas and caused a spike in oil prices. Gas prices have actually mostly reflect trends in global prices and crude oil prices. Both the US benchmark and the international benchmark have been slumping since mid-June on growing fears of a global recession that will reduce demand for energy. Many energy analysts believe that prices are more likely to rise than fall in the next 2 months, but changes in sentiment about the economy and even hurricane season make predictions uncertain. Biden's approval rating dropped 5 points in the past week. A new poll found that 41% of respondents approved of Biden's job performance. That's down from 50% last week. The results are now $3,200 is finally starting to go out to the American people very soon. A new deposit date has been revealed by lawmakers. Eligible people can be able to claim a $3,200 stimulus check. Not only that, but Democrats and Republicans have proposed new inflation relief checks that may provide every single American taxpayer with a $2,000 stimulus payment. It's some very good news, everybody, and I'm glad to see that President Biden is ready to help out the American people with stimulus checks. It's finally time he does what it takes and send out stimulus payments. Now, Alaska residents will soon be getting stimulus payments from the state government of up to $3,200. This stimulus check for Alaska is not actually a stimulus check, but rather annual dividends. The governor and the state legislature approved the annual budget, and the budget included provision to send a $3,200 payment to eligible residents just before the end of the year. The stimulus check is for Alaska. It's an annual dividend that the state pays to residents to share the oil's wealth. And also the state will use the Alaska Permanent Fund, which was created in 1982 to fund a dividend payment. According to Governor Dunleavy, the budget is more than a spending plan. It's a blueprint for Alaska's future. Budgets should reflect the values and ambitions of the people that they are designed for. And also, I believe this legislation accomplishes that, is what he said. Now, initially, the state Senate proposed oil wealth checks of $5,500 to eligible residents and further negotiations. However, it resulted in lowering the amount of $3,200 just to that same amount. Still, the payment is the second largest in state history after adjusting for inflation. As a point to note is that this year's check combines two checks. One is the usual dividend check of $2,500 and the other is $650 energy relief payments. Energy eligible residents can expect the oil wealth checks in their bank accounts this week, and residents will get a larger payment through paper checks. They'll also have to wait until October. Alaska usually pays dividends in October, but this year, lawmakers decided to move forward with the payment to help those struggling with the high price of energy and gasoline. In 2020, the payment is also expedited because of the crisis, and residents need to apply for the stimulus check. Now, those who haven't been residents of the state for the past calendar year or prior to the application date for the dividend will be eligible for stimulus checks in Alaska. Applicants must also intend to continue living in the state indefinitely. According to the State Department of Revenue, it's processing more than 78,000 applications to determine the eligibility for the payment. Applicants can check the status of the application through the website created by the Alaska Department of Revenue. In the Biden administration, advanced child tax credit payments proved to be a lifeline for many low-income families, but a recent audit found that the IRS failed to send money to millions of taxpayers who qualify. The audit released by the Treasury Inspector found that overall the agency was 98% accurate when issuing the $180 million payments. So, however, the 2% accuracy involved billions of dollars everybody and affected millions of households in a negative way. According to the Treasury Inspector General, the IRS failed to send 8 million payments, about $4 billion worth, to 4.1 million taxpayers. The IRS said that the programming errors are to blame, and in July, taxpayers with an ITIN number were mistakenly excluded. Also in August, if only one spouse updated bank account information, they also didn't receive their advance payment. And while some qualifying people didn't receive their checks as well, the IRS did mistakenly send 3 million payments, and valued at $1 billion, to 1.5 million taxpayers who just were not eligible to receive the money. People who received the money in error need to claim on their taxes early this year, unless their annual income would qualify them for full repayment protection. The report, which the IRS managers also were involved with, made several recommendations to prevent future incorrect payments. Now, everybody at the IRS is trying to take care of this and help out the people with stimulus payments, so hopefully President Biden can also do the same and help out the American people with stimulus checks.
The powerful middlemen who are behind rising drug prices, because if you don't address PBM reform, a cap on out-of-pocket costs will only result in shifting patient costs somewhere else. In my 2-year bipartisan insulin investigation, we found that a drug's list price is tied to rebates and other fees that drug companies have to pay PBMs. The scheme encourages drug makers